What's up, party people? It's Chris with Pro Photo, and this is Geared Up. It's our weekly live broadcast where we talk about gear, we talk about lighting techniques, we talk about technical stuff. Sometimes we create some cool images, sometimes we dive into the technicalities of things, and that's what we're getting into today. So I see this get talked about a lot on forums or in social media groups and stuff like that about the difference between using a flat front light and a protruded dome flash head. What I mean by that, I guess I could take this softbox off and show you what we're talking about. So for people who may not necessarily know what I'm talking about by a protruded head light, this Pro head, for example, let's take my Octa off of there. There's gonna be a lot of softboxes thrown around today. So, but a protruded head or protruded flash tube light looks like this. So the dome is exposed. The flash tube for the actual light itself is inside of this. I need to silence and put my stuff into do not disturb mode. But the flash tube is exposed inside the dome. So the light that's being shot out is right here. So that's the actual tube there. It goes everywhere. So the upside for one of these lights is it throws light in a more even 180 degree pattern. Then you have things like your flat front lights. So I'm gonna pull my B10 here off the wall. So flat front light is probably what most people who are hanging in the pro photo world are used to. They are used to seeing something like the B10 or the B1 that has the flash tube recessed into the light. It does a couple of things. One, because these flat front lights have a reflector inside of them, you can take them out of the box, put them on a stand, poof, beautiful light. It's got a nice throw. I believe this one's in the, I want to say 68 degrees. There's so many numbers that I forget, but I'm pretty sure it's close to 68 degrees on this. So a good wide throw. And when it means beam pattern, it just means from here to here without losing a stop of light. Once you lose a stop of light, that's where the beam pattern is what's adjusted for. So that doesn't mean that the light stops going this way. I mean, the light's bouncing off the reflector and going all kinds of directions, and this is one of the things I like to show people with a dead battery. One of the things that I like to show people is that if you hold your hand up to the side of something like a B10, yes, the light is being thrown in that 68 degree pattern. I want to make sure people can see this. But if I start to take my hand to the side right here, look at that. Like my hand is barely over the edge of it, and you're getting light. So it spills at 180 degrees. You're just not getting the same power at 180 degrees as you are here with a protruded flash head. So that's just something I like people to remember, is that yes, there's the flat front light does have a beam angle, but it still throws light 180 degrees. It's just not at the same power that the main beam angle is. So that's your protruded head, that's your flash head. And that's why we're even having this discussion. But there's lots of different modifiers out there. There are beauty dishes, there's hard reflectors like the Magnum and stuff like that, especially the original Magnum. People call it the RFI Magnum a lot now because kind of the OCF style stuff, and people are like, oh, it's just, when you say Magnum, it makes sense. It's funny, but it's a good way of thinking about it. But it's just called the Magnum. Things like the Magnum reflector, those things have their quirks and they're designed to work a certain way, and we will have one of those breakdowns. But today we're going to talk about predominantly softboxes. I'm going to pull a softbox out here in a second. We're going to talk about the anatomy of the softbox, and then we're also going to talk about why the different parts of the softbox do different things, and we're going to even figure out if it even matters if you use a protruded flash head or a flat front flash head. We have a couple different sizes of softboxes we're going to play around with too. We're going to stay. The main one we're going to be kind of working with is my 4-foot Octa and a 1x4 strip box. Those are some of the pretty popular sizes. The 4-foot RFI Octa is still one of my absolute favorite modifiers. And then hopefully I would love if we had a 4-foot and the new pop open. We'll see, maybe one day. It's what I'm pushing for really, really hard. But I love that 4-foot size. But then I have a 5-foot RFI Octa and a 1x6 RFI strip box. And that we're going to actually take pictures of the front of all of them, and we're going to see how the light falls off towards the edges. And then we're going to take photos, and we're going to see if that light falling off to the edge even matters. So let's do that right now. Cool. So let's start with the 4-foot octa. We're going to put it onto this pro head. I'm going to swing this pro head over here. We're going to point it forward. Actually, you know what? Before we take a photo, I said we were going to talk about the anatomy of a softbox. Let's talk about that first. Still need to point this forward for you to see it. So most softboxes have 2 layers of diffusion. They have this outer baffle that most people are used to seeing, and then they have this inner baffle right here. The inner baffle does 2 things. The first thing the inner baffle does is it's going to give another barrier to keep hot spots from happening dead center of the flash. The second thing, and I think this part gets overlooked a lot because most people see this and they go, okay, it's for hotspot reduction. The second thing this does is when that light is fired for the first time, this becomes a light source. This light source, even though this isn't the thing lighting you, this light source allows for reflected light to be bounced all the way around the softbox, hitting the edges and throwing light forward. So you're not getting just the beam pattern, especially with the flat front lights, just the beam pattern of the light coming out. You're getting this turned into a light source, that light bouncing around the softbox, and then also that light coming forward. So again, it helps mitigate hotspots, but it becomes the first light source that starts to illuminate the inside of the softbox along with the flash head itself. So that's something to keep in mind when you're when you're going, oh, you know, a flat front light doesn't light the inside of a softbox as well as a protruded head flash. The other thing to think about too is size of softbox. So the bigger the softbox gets, the more you're going to need light thrown out towards the edges. A smaller softbox, and the reason that we're not necessarily talking about a smaller softbox is I don't really have one. I don't have a super small one that I could put on a pro head safely. Like I just have the OCF stuff. And I think my smallest RFI is a 3x3. So we're kind of in the same realm. But as you get smaller, it's probably not going to matter as much because the sides of the softbox is closer to the primary source, which is the flash coming out of the light. So you're getting a little bit more even lighting there anyway. That's why we're talking about big softboxes, because as the primary source, the thing generating the light, the flash, is starting to get further away from the edges, we, in theory, should expect there to be light fall off towards the edges. We're probably going to see it. We're also going to try to figure out, does it matter? No, I won't be using a light meter to measure the edges. I don't care that much. I think visually is what matters more than anything else. We should be able to see some stuff. Cool. So we're talking.
Are you ready for me?
No, not just yet.
Okay.
So what we're going to do real fast is we're going to take some photos of the fronts of these flashes, and then I'm going to roll stuff in. So cool. Let's see if I can see the whole thing on my camera. I can, but let's just back it up a little bit. Hey man, there we go. Perfect. So this is a Pro 11. Caitlin, remember the number 5.0?
5.0.
Yes.
Locked in.
Yes. Just because I want to be able to come back to that really quickly. So let's go into TTL mode, and we're going to take a shot of the front of this light. 3, 2, 1. So that is the front of the, let me go to full screen mode. That is the front of the 4-foot octa with a protruded flash head. So for the most part, it looks pretty dang even. You can clearly see the inner diffuser pulling down the hot spot. So around the edges of the actual flash itself, there are it's got a little bit more light here, and then you can clearly see the inner diffuser, and then you could also see a bit of a hot spot there. In the middle, not that big of a deal. The center diffuser is doing a great job of mitigating that. So let's take this light away, and let's bring in a flat front light. You know what we could probably do just to keep things a buck? Let's do this. Let's go here. I'm going to do something that's sacrilege. I'm going to take this pro head, and I'm going to set it on the ground. Yes, I am. It's going to go down here. It's going to the floor. I cherish my flat front light, but it's going to the floor. Let's go to this B10. Cool. We're going, again, 4-foot octa is my favorite size. It's one of the reasons that we're using it. The other thing is, technically, this is the biggest size octa you should put onto a B10, but I'm going to show you a cool Frankenstein thing that someone made on the internet, and I had to do it myself because I just think it's so dang neat. So here we go. Let's go. Let's just, for the sake of evenness, let's do that. Here we go. So when we're looking at the front of the light, let's see what they look like. Let's pull up side by side with the flat front and the Pro head. So with the flat front light, we're getting much more forward light, which is, I mean, I guess you would kind of expect that because there's a reflector inside of the B10 throwing the light forward. Let's see. You know what I'm going to do really fast because I need to see if my... Okay. There we go. I just had to check something on my remote real fast. So for the most part, you're getting the same edge right here from the inner diffuser going around. We're definitely getting more of a hotspot from the flat front than we are from the protruded head. The diffuser itself is lit a little more even here. Again, we have a little bit more of a ring here towards the edge of the diffuser on the flat front light, but top to bottom, side to side, the reflected light's doing a pretty good job. I mean, we're seeing, like, even if you just kind of look at some of the light patterns here, like you look at some of the little light patterns that are coming off the reflector of the background, they're in the same spot. Like, look at that one. There's that same V pattern. So I think maybe when I took the TTL shot, this one probably, let me just see if I can boost the exposure a little bit, because I think the TTL is maybe under by a hair. Oh, I don't want to go that crazy. See if I can just match it a little bit better. But a lot of the patterns that you see here are happening here. It does a pretty good job of lighting it edge to edge. Again, the thing that you're seeing, a little more power in the middle. So that's cool. What about strip boxes? So octaboxes are kind of easy because they're round. The flash head's round. The light's being thrown around. But when it comes to a strip box, you have a lot more distance from the center to the edges. So let's start with the 1x4. Because I still think this is probably one of the most popular size strip boxes. And these new collapsible ones are just dynamite. Cool. Let's see what we got. So again, with the B10 first. So there we go with the flat front. And now we're going to see, you can already see with the sides of the, that we have definite fall off towards the edges, but let's see how much we have fallen off with the protruded head. And taking all these pictures is fun. It's dandy. It's cool. But when we actually take photos with it, we're going to see if that matters as well. Because if that light's not translating the same way to the subject, then does it really matter? Yeah? Some would say yes, some would say no. We could argue all day. But this is just kind of fun things that work out. Anybody have any questions so far? Is it not so far? Cool? I mean, I figured it's pretty straightforward on what we're doing. So cool. So we go 3, 2, blah. Oh, and I didn't turn one light on and I left the other light off because I'm awesome at this. Cool.
Check out the darkness.
Here we go. Way more edge to edge. So when it comes to the strip box, pretty night and day. Now I would say that the B10 seems a little underexposed. So even if I kind of match flash exposure there a little bit, it still has some dark spots here. So if you're looking right here at the top and bottom of the softbox, there are some places where the light gets dark. There is still some light being gathered right here at the very edges. And that's from, light bouncing around and then getting out around that diffusion panel that's on the inside. But as expected, a flat front light trying to throw a whole bunch of light to the edges of something a little bit further. A little less efficient, but again, we're gonna take some photos of Kate with it and see, does that matter? Does it translate? So that is what we're gonna dive into now. So you ready to rock and roll, Kate?
I'm ready, let's do it.
So since we started with the octa, let's go back to the octa just to keep things at the same cadence or the same pace, maybe. I don't even know. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is there. Oh, hey, pattern's the word. Pattern's the word. Sequence is also the word. It took you no time to fix the thing that I could not fix.
Well, I'm
Cool.
just sitting here.
Yeah. Listen to me babble. Cool. So one of the questions we asked a couple questions before we went live just to kind of see what people thought about stuff. So a couple people wanted to see the difference between the like the Magnum and the beauty dishes with this type of stuff. We'll dive into that on another day. I really want this one to be about softboxes so that we can kind of either confirm or squash any theories that people may have about stuff. And then someone was also talking about the soft zoom, whether it mattered with the soft zoom. We've done a live with this with the soft zoom. If you don't want to go back and watch it, the quick and dirty is the protruded dome fills it a little bit better. When you zoom it all the way in for a harder light, you get a better product with a flat front light because it's making that source even smaller on the inside of the soft zoom. So I wanted to address those. And then we had another, a couple other things asked were, the one that I was going for was light placement inside the softbox. So
does it matter the placement of the head of the speed range?
What that person's asking is, as with most things, you can kind of, depending on the size of the light, you can zoom the softbox in and out. With the protruded head, it's probably not going to matter as much because the light's still going all over the place. With the flat front light, I think if you could get it in a little bit further, it's probably going to matter a hair more, but it may not move the needle that much. So something to keep in mind. All right, let's set this up. We're gonna try to keep it shot relatively wide so you can see how the light falls in the background. You ready, Kate?
Yeah.
And we're gonna go up about 45 degrees, and we want to see how the light falls in the background. I'm also going to take some shots of the light just on the background. I'm going to turn it sideways, and we're going to see how the light pattern hits the background as well. So we're really deep diving. So
Where was I about here?
yeah, about right there. Let me kind of push the light back so it's not creeping into the scene so much. And then we'll keep the light stand where it's at, and we'll do the thing where I set the light on the ground and make Kate angry.
Anxiety.
Cool.
Yeah.
So let me
Step into it like that.
yeah, I just need to pan down a little bit and you could actually, if you want to, you can come like a hair more forward. There we go, like right there. And then we are at let me get out of TTL mode. I believe we're at a power level of 5. There we go. Ready? 3, 2, 1. So beautiful. So that's with the protruded head. With the Pro head, essentially. So does a really good job filling softbox. The softbox is back far enough where it's kind of flooding the scene a little bit more. Really, really even down towards the bottom. You can see how her shadow feathers out quite a bit. That's what a big softbox does. It makes things soft. It really takes that line of demarcation and starts to spread it out. So let's do no stuff. And this is strictly to try to keep the light in the same place without having to switch out a bunch of softboxes or switch out a bunch of light stands. So, and I'm putting it on carpet, being a good guy, doing good stuff. Okay, let's go back to the B10. This is just the 250 watt B10. It's not the B10 Plus. So let's get this on here, raise it to the same height, and let's see if the result we get. So we know they do a pretty similar job on lighting the inside of the softbox. Let's see what it does when it's lighting a scene. I have a feeling it's probably gonna be pretty similar. That's 250. So let's turn this off. Turn this one on. And then we're at a power level of 5, which means this one probably needs to be at a power level of 7. So let's just try that and see what happens. I'm gonna take a quick test shot. You don't have to do the thing. No, yeah, we need to be up at 8. I know John right now is sitting there thinking to himself, he's like, Chris just used the light meter. But this is so much faster. Cool, I just want to see something. So. Yeah, there we are. All right, cool. Ready to go? So I'm going to get rid of that shot real fast. Here we go. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Lovely. Put the 2 shots up side by side so you can see real fast. Softness-wise, they're pretty much on the money. So I would say when it comes down to what it comes down to an octabox, at least with the 4-foot size, I wouldn't bat an eye at using a flat front light versus using a protruded head. So if someone goes, hey, there's a huge difference between the two, I would say you're very wrong. Again, the upside is that I'm looking at the screen over here too while we're talking, but the upside is because it's hitting that first layer of diffusion and throwing light all over the softbox, you're getting a much more even output through that last layer of diffusion, which is technically the light source. So again, the first layer of diffusion mitigates hotspots, but becomes the light source to light the inside of the softbox. The actual light source that's lighting your subject is the second layer of diffusion. So even though you'd think in your brain the light source is the flash itself, it's not. The last thing that light hits that's broadcasting on your subject, that's technically the light source. So that last light source is coming out pretty dang even. Top to bottom, they look nearly identical. The only thing that I could say, if I had to, and this could just be body placement.
I know, I'm wondering if my angle was slightly different.
Or you could also be turned a little bit more.
It's not lighting the shirt.
The knee, yeah, the knee and is a little darker on the flat front light. But if you kind of pay attention to your shoulder that's forward on the flat front shot, it's turned a little more forward. It's rolled a little more forward, which means your shoulder could just be blocking that light. So again, looking at the shadow, we can go all the way down to where the shadow connects to the foot. They look almost identical. So again, I wouldn't bat an eye at using a flat front light with at least a 4-foot octave, right? Cool. So let's do it now with the strip box. Actually, let's do it with the strip box. Then we'll get into something else. We'll talk about light patterns. Let's take this down. Since this is already here, let's take the strip box. I'll throw a 4-foot off over here. Again, like I said, there's gonna be soft boxes everywhere today. So, not only soft boxes everywhere.
Our cozy space.
Yeah, we're making sure the studio can really. We're not going to boom the strip box up quite so high, and I think I might actually bring it in a little bit more, just a hair. Just keep it right out of the frame of the camera. Let's see.
Can you answer this question? What's the reason for the silk inside the softbox?
Yeah, so the reason for the silk inside the softbox is like what we were saying. The silk in the softbox does 2 things: mitigates hotspots and acts as another light source to fill the inside of the softbox. So. No problemo. Is this thing working properly, you think?
I don't know.
It's kind of funky.
Yeah.
Could you pull it up on your phone on YouTube to make sure we're not missing anybody? Because I feel like our system is acting a little funky on the chat side.
Not getting as many questions populating.
Yeah. And a lot of the stuff that we're going to answer right away is going to be some questions, like I said, that we asked, that were asked to earlier. So cool. So with the strip box, I'm not going to go quite as high. One of the things I like to do when I'm using a strip box, especially as the main light source, is I want the middle of the light, the actual light itself, so the middle of the softbox, to be at eye level with the subject. So, cool.
Okay, here are all of our questions.
Yeah, so I had
do you want to just...
I had a feeling that was
take
acting
with
weird.
you?
Yeah, I had a feeling that was acting weird.
Guys.
So I see your questions now, so let's see. Someone was asking if there was a dome-like modifier for the B10X. We talked about this a few lives ago. There's not. So the upside for like the B1 and stuff like that is you can take that front diffusion panel off and put the dome attachment on. You're still not getting the flash tube into the dome itself, so the light's still hitting a reflector and going forward. The diffusion of that dome does help some in spreading that light a little bit more 180 degrees, but you're still coming out at an angle. What would need to happen with that dome is that the flash tube would need to come out a little bit more. Let's see. What's up, Vienna in the house? Softness based on size and distance relative to the subject. Throwing light out does not necessarily make it softer unless the walls and ceilings are reflecting a lot of light. True. There are lots of reflections. It is a white room. But again, we're trying to see if the utilization of the softbox. So yes, the size of the modifier does matter. But if you're not filling that size of the modifier, then are you truly using that size of modifier to light your subject is what we're saying. And again, things we're looking at is like the lines of demarcation on the shadow. That's going to be one of the telltale signs because that's the direction that the light's actually coming from. Yes, it will lower the contrast of that shadow with some reflected light. We very clearly have a V flat right here to open up some of the shadows. So I'm not hiding it. It's right there. If you cut to that camera right there, it's blocking half the shot. So yes, there are some reflections. We are mitigating some of those. This isn't supposed to be the most technical of tests. It's just in a real world scenario, does this stuff matter? So, but thank you very much for the input. I really do appreciate it. Is the exposure equivalent between the two lights? I'm trying to keep the exposure right on the money. So the difference between, sorry, I accidentally closed that. The difference between the two is one's a 2400 watt second pack and the other one's a 250 watt second flash and mono light. So. All right, Kate, you want to come over here? I'm going to keep the power levels the same and see if anything changes between the two. I have a feeling since what we saw with the 1x4 when we shot it forward and it utilizing more of the center, we're probably going to have a little bit harder of a shadow than we are when we throw the Pro head onto it, but we'll just see what happens. So you can come a little more forward. I mean, you can be right. You can be, yeah.
You want to be right on me?
You can be right. I want it to be kind of right. So that's good, I think.
Yeah.
Or do you want?
It's right behind me a little bit. That's better.
Okay. Here we go. This is the 1x4. 3, 2, 1. Like I expected, look how much harder that shadow is in comparison to the Octa. That's to be expected because the distance here between the softbox is relatively small. It's only 1 foot. So the light coming from that direction is going to be a little bit harder. It's not going to be the same size in relationship to the subject. So let's throw the Pro head on. All right. Yeah. We see your questions now. Like I said, our little chat system, we noticed something was funky about it before we started, and we thought we resolved it. We did not resolve it. So, ready, Kate? So let's see how much the shadow changes between the flat front light and this light. You can come forward a little bit. Like right there, yeah, I guess. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Oh, what did we do? Let's just test. Okay.
There it is.
3, 2, 1. Lovely. Let's see. Let's pull them up side by side. Let's get rid of that bad boy. You might have been.
I feel like I was too forward, yeah?
Yeah, you're a little bit too forward. Let's take another one just to make sure that we get your face lit up a little bit more.
Sorry.
Just get back in there. Just so you can kind of see.
Like here?
No, yeah, that's way too far back. Come forward. We should have marked the ground. We didn't. Let's go this way. Here. Okay, and then yeah, because oh, you know what? I might have actually done this whenever I changed the flash head.
That's what I was thinking. Okay.
When I changed the flash head, I didn't move this back. That was actually my bad. You did great. It was all me as usual. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. That feels a little bit more correct. So let's just see what we've got here. Shadow-wise, you can see down towards the foot, down here. Again, we're really kind of looking at these shadows because I think this is where we're going to see a little more information as far as that light broadcasting.
Yeah, it looks a little blown out, just so you know.
Yeah, it's the contrast of the switcher here. Let me pull back the exposure a hair. So let's go there. Let's pull back the exposure here a little bit too. Let's get funky with it. Boom. Oh, you know what? I had this set there too, so let's do that. That was from earlier. The one cool thing about Capture One is it holds on to your setting that you mess with. The bad thing about Capture One is if you don't remember that you have a setting, it's there. So again, kind of looking down here at the shadow, there's a little more feathering, especially as we start getting up here more towards the leg. Some more in the softbox. Down here, I would expect it to be a little bit more of a harder light because this is the farthest distance away from the softbox itself. But that being said, it does have a little more of a feather than here. Some of this could be body placement as far as like where we're standing. This looks maybe a hair closer to the scene. But again, if you kind of just like look here at where the shadow line of the body happens, it's way more pronounced here than it is here. So that filling of that strip box is doing something. But now when we actually look at the light on Kate, let's see if it matters. So head to toe here, we're pretty even. It's definitely more light here up around the face and the arm, especially the arm because this elbow is pointed right at the modifier. Right, modifier's right there. So we are going to expect a little bit more light here, but top to bottom, it's doing a pretty good job of illuminating Kate's body, what a strip box is meant to do. Then you go over here to the protruded head, so the pro head. Again, good evenness. I'm trying to dive in here and see if I see. I would say that top to bottom on the leg, it looks a little more even, especially from kind of the thigh down to the ankle, especially if we're kind of paying attention to some of these highlights right here. The fact that the pro head's doing a better job of filling that softbox top to bottom is giving us a little bit more even light, a little more actual light here on the leg altogether. Still getting a good result with the 1x4, but I would say with the pro head, it edges it out with evenness here. From the arm to the face, still also that highlight is pretty even. I know, again, that it's contrasty on your screen. It's not as contrasty on mine. The exposure here, not blown out at all, and it's pretty even from here to the elbow to the top of the head. So when it comes to a strip box, does it matter huge? No, but does it matter? Yeah, it matters. Those being able to get more light there to those edges is going to make a difference on the evenness as it falls down towards the subject. So the cool thing about a strip box is in one direction it's a harder light and another direction it's a softer light. So in the long direction, you're getting more light through that longer, softer direction. Probably easily seen in the fact that the shadow feathers out a little bit more with your pro head, but also because it's throwing that light wider, more even, you're getting a more even highlight down from the hip down to the ankle. So very cool stuff. What I do want to do is I'm going to actually take these strip boxes. I could do this with the Octa. I don't think it matters that much just because when we took the photo of the Octa straight on, they look pretty darn even. But what I want to take with the strip box, I actually want to put them up against the background. And I want to see if the beam pattern matters. So we're going to...
Would you like me to move this?
Yeah, sure. We can move this real fast.
There we go.
Cool. These classical V-flats are nice. Cool. So let's see. I'm just going to go into TTL mode. Let it do its thing. So So that's the beam pattern of the 1x4 coming out of the light on the background. So you can actually see the beam pattern there. Let's do the same thing with the B10, and let's see how much that matters. Again, the actual photo itself, which is where, you know, the paying client cares the most, it matters, but it doesn't matter at a clip that I think would be life or death on your shoot. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay. Let's get that pointed down a little bit like that one was. Now, I could throw the 1x6 on there. I brought a 1x6 down, but I think the effect is just going to be exacerbated even more because you're getting so much further away from the light source with the 1x6. So I don't know that we have to drag it on that long, but here we go with the, oh, I got to turn that light on before I make a mistake. There we go. Also, everybody who came and is watching and tuning in, thank you so much. 3, 2. So let's see what we're looking like. Let's pull them up side by side. So light output wise, the hot spot towards the middle of the Pro head looks a little more even from top to bottom. It looks like we're getting a lot more even light here to here, and then it starts to fall off. Whereas kind of with that 1x4 through the B10, we have kind of this rounded hot spot right here, and then it starts to fall off. So you're getting more power here with that protruded head straight forward, and then the B10, you're kind of getting this orb of light right here towards the middle. And then it's feathering off quite nicely. Again, light patterns, at least towards the background, aren't terribly dissimilar, but you are getting more coverage with the Pro head, which is what we expected from taking that front shot of the Pro head, is seeing it go through there a little bit more, but actually seeing how the light beam comes out of the modifier itself. So you can take a picture of it all day long, and that's all fine and dandy. How does the light actually come out of it? And we're looking at it this way. They're not terribly far off. The light is definitely from the Pro head coming out in more of a rectangular pattern, which is what we would expect from it filling up more of a rectangular modifier. The pattern coming out of the B10 feels a little more round, feels a little more orb-like. Something, again, to be expected with it not totally filling up the edges, or I would almost even say like the two, let me pull this up real fast, just so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. I'm going to take this one. So because it's kind of not filling up as bright, it is lighting it, it's just not filling it up with the same intensity. This section right here and this section right here, so the ends of the inner diffusion panel, because it's not filling those up, that's where we're getting some more of that orb-like shape from the roundness of the head and that projector that reflector inside the light shooting it straight forward. But again, we're still getting a nice feather out towards the edges. It is illuminating the edges of that strip box. It's just not illuminating them at the same intensity that we're getting at the center of the modifier. Hopefully that makes sense. Luckily, the contrast isn't pumping so hard that you can't actually see what I'm talking about on this thing, but you are definitely getting a more light modifier accurate beam from the protruded head when it comes to the strip box. Again, with the octas, not that big of a deal, but yeah. So just for fun, also because I pulled it out and I think it's this cool little Frankenstein of so somebody on a Facebook group was talking about, so the B10 is not meant to be used with B10 is not meant to be used with a 5-foot octa. It's the way that it breaks down, so it's super compact and you throw it in your bag, doesn't allow for the weight of this softbox. It gets pretty heavy, especially, and then I even threw a 4, before I knew about the weight issue, I actually put my 4x6 on a B10, and then I used like a nylon strap to reinforce it. So that was sketchy. But this is something something that somebody threw together. So, and then I thought it was so cool that I had to make one for myself. It's made with all Pro Photo parts, things that are, this is the RFI Speedlight speed ring, and you just take out the, you just unscrew these little screws right here, and you take the flange out of an RFI a normal RFI speed ring, you put it in that. And that makes the modifier stand supported and not light supported. So now I can throw a B10 inside this 5-foot octa. So that's what I'm gonna do. We're gonna take a couple photos with it. Let's see how it fares with a bigger octabox. So again, we didn't go to the 1x6 with the flat front light because the 1x4 was so telling in what it does. So again, the cool thing about this Frankenstein thing that someone concocted is my B10's in there, and it's not. You can see it's not supported. It's supported by the stand. It's not supported by the light. So I mean, I can fold this up and it disappears.
People are so smart.
People are way smarter than me. I know that much. So.
Philippe says he would love to see the same comparison done with umbrellas as well.
Oh, we could do an umbrella one.
Yeah.
We can 100% do an umbrella one. Again, I really wanted this to stay softbox centric, but I plan on diving into all this stuff with the hard reflectors, beauty dishes, all that stuff. I really want to make sure that there's a resource out there for you to be able to come back and reference if you're like, hey, does this matter? And then that way people aren't throwing things around on the internet. You can just go, hey, I saw Chris test that. Hey, it's raining. I saw Chris test that. It didn't do what it said it was going to do, or it did what I thought it was going to do. So cool. Let's.
Am I hopping back in there?
I'm going to have you hop back in there. I'm gonna take a picture of the front of it real fast.
If you guys have any questions, please go ahead and pop them in. I'll
Yeah. Again, our system acting funky, so we found where you are now, so we're good. We're back in business. So sweet. We've got the B10 in a 5-foot octa. Let's pull the whole thing up there. Let's see how the light throws with the B10. Let's just go to TTL mode just for funsies. 3, 2, boom. Oh, hello. Let me double check something. Ah, that would be an issue. That would be an issue. I knew that didn't look right. So let's fix that, unless I threw my 5-foot diffuser somewhere and I can't find it. Gotcha. Sorry about the crackling noises on my microphone. That did not look correct right out of the jump. So
what's the wattage on the ProHead?
ProHead is a 2500 watt pack and head system. I'm shooting it roughly at a power level of 5, which is 1/32nd power. So if you just take that and you keep cutting it in half down to number 5, so 2400, 9 is 1200, 600 at 8, 300 at 7, 150 at 6, and then 75 at 5. So about 75 watts of light.
And we were keeping the exposure equal, right?
Yeah.
As close as we could.
As close as you could with a quick TTL shot. I could have used a flash meter. Honestly, I just being a little bit hard-headed today. Honestly, I'm hoping that John sees this, and he's just like, Chris, you're killing me, man. Yeah. Honestly, maybe at this point it's just me trying to make John angry at me. Yeah, and it's only because I love him. Just because I love him. All right, cool. So now this should be way better.
A little off topic, but since I'm getting one next week, I might just ask. Does the OCF 3-foot grid fit the new 3-foot softbox?
I've never tried it. The Velcro of the OCF attaches to the softbox differently than this, for example, is more like the new softboxes where it has this big strip of Velcro right here on the inside, and it's attached here on the inside. Whereas with the OCF, it actually has a channel that goes around the edges of the softbox, and then the Velcro's on the outside, so it grabs there. Who was the person who said that?
Sorry, Charlie? No. Philippe? Sorry.
Caitlin will tell me who it is in here in a second.
Philippe.
Caitlin, could you put up my Instagram handle?
Yes.
Philippe, DM me. at my IG handle that Kate's going to pop up here. And I'll test it and let you know. I want to keep the train moving here. But I've never.
Feel free, like, this is Chris's handle.
Yeah, you can DM me there.
Yeah, he's happy to answer any questions there.
So here's the difference between a 5-foot octa with and without center diffusion. It's a big deal, right? So that's, I mean, heck, let's just talk about that for half a second. So that's the 5-foot octa with and without center diffusion. So now when I was telling you earlier that center diffusion does two things, it mitigates the hotspot, but it also helps illuminate the rest of the inside of the softbox. That's what I was talking about. So with the single layer diffusion, you can clearly see that there's a mega hotspot. You can see kind of a very clear star pattern coming out of the modifier or out of the light itself and bouncing around inside the modifier. That center diffusion panel changes the game with how, there we go, changes the game with how that light is distributed through that softbox. So that is with the B10. I'm almost curious to do, or I'm almost thinking that I should take the center diffusion panel out for the Pro Head. But the thing that you would expect with the Pro Head is it's going to throw the light everywhere, and you're still going to have a hot spot. So we don't have to get too crazy there. Again, the cool thing about this little mount is even with the Pro Head, the modifier is now stand mounted and not flash head mounted. So that's kind of neat. Something I really, really like.
Philippe says, I'm getting my first Protruded kit next week. So pretty interested in all of these tests. My only fear is that the recent price drop on the B10X, I'm getting a pair of those plus a A2 plus modifiers. I mean, if they release a new version in a couple weeks, that would be a bummer.
So you're safe. I would say that you're probably safe in a B10 release in a couple of weeks. So here's the other thing to think about too. So when you're thinking about like lights and trying to figure out whether or not the right time to make the investment in this stuff. So we try to make sure that everything that we do now can be supported via firmware. Again, these tests right here are to show you that you're not, it depends on the type of modifier you use, but if you're a big softbox user, this is showing you what you need to look out for with softboxes, whether you have a protruded front or a flat front head. Again, I don't think it's as big of a deal as some people make it out to be. Did we see a difference between the strip boxes with the two? Yes, but when the final result of the light hitting the subject, did it matter at that same level? No. At least in my opinion, no. If you're more of a stickler for the details, then sure, that probably mattered more. I don't want to speak for everybody. Your artistic style is your artistic style, but for me, that's okay. I could find ways with light position or reflectors to mitigate some more of that stuff. So it just depends on, or did it even matter in the first place at all? But when it comes to thinking about like, when should I invest? I bought a Mac laptop and the newest one came out like 2 weeks later. But I still got 2 weeks of work out of my laptop that I wouldn't have gotten. So it's just one of those things. Technology is always going to change, but the upside for the B10s and the B10Xs is firmware updates allow for a lot of stuff, and they're great lights. So here's the Pro Head and the 5-foot octa. It does a better job filling it. Granted, I think the exposure is a little more powerful. I think here, let's just match exposure. Again, I should be doing this with a light meter. I'm not, but getting it relatively close just so you can see. As the octa starts to get larger into the 5-foot world, there is a difference in the way it feels. Granted, I think some of it too still is the exposure of this one. Let's just see. Pull it back for a little bit better of a match. There we go. So that's a little bit closer of a match on the exposures. You're still getting that exact same, much more pronounced hotspot in the middle of the 5-foot octa that you were getting with the 4-foot octa. Oh, there we go. That you were getting with the 4-foot octa. So you're still getting that same hot spot in the middle, and that's to be expected because the light is coming out of a reflector and a certain beam pattern, hitting that center layer of diffusion, bouncing all over the place, lighting up the softbox. Whereas you have your Pro head, the one on the right, that is going to shoot the light out a lot more even. There is still a ring from where the diffusion panel separates, the inner diffusion panel separates, and there's a gap between the inner diffusion panel and the softbox itself. They're on both of them, but evenness-wise, the Pro head is more even. There's no getting around that. But I don't think it's so much more even that it's going to matter that much. And that's with a 5-foot octa. So it's a pretty big modifier. So just something to think about. Really, I'm a 4-foot octa junkie, so I generally tend to care more about that one anyway. But even with the 5-footer, it's not that big of a deal. So, any other questions before we sign off for this bad boy for the day?
I think we got it. Yeah.
So we dove through a lot of stuff. We talked about light patterns on the back wall, so you can actually see it with the strip box. We looked at how the light pattern hits the front of the softboxes and fills it up. We did a 4-foot octa and a 1x4 strip. We did a 5-foot octa also. The difference in the way that the protruded head filled the 1x4 versus the flat front was kind of enough of a test for us to go, okay, the 1x6 is just going to be a little bit more of that. So we didn't go to the 1x6 route, but the 5-foot octa was fun to look at. So the 5-foot octa, again, just so people don't think that I'm breaking the rules, because we tell people all the time, don't put a 5-foot octa on your B10. You can go to the side shot and see it. I'm using this Frankenstein. I like to call it a Frankenstein. I'm using this Frankenstein adapter, all with Profoto parts, to stand mount the modifier as opposed to flash mounting the modifier. So it's an RFI Speedlight speed ring and a Profoto flange just screwed into the ports. Really, really easy to do if you want one yourself. That's all you need. And that's for big modifiers. It works really good with the 1x6. Or sorry, not the 1x6, the 4x6. So we went through all the different lights. We talked about you're just like camera. I'm like, where am I supposed to go? But we talked about the sizes. We looked at how the light goes. We looked at how the pattern falls in the background. We actually photographed Kate to see if, when it actually hits a subject with both modifiers, how much it matters. For me personally, it didn't matter that much. The octas for me were pretty spot on. They were pretty dang even. The one thing again that we saw with the strip boxes is that there's a little more evenness towards the bottom of the shot, to be expected because the protruded head's filling that softbox a little more. But cool. That being said, I'm not going to belabor the point anymore. We went through a lot of tests. We looked at a lot of things. My conclusion, should you worry that much about a flat front light versus a protruded head light when it comes to a softbox? If you're a stickler for the details, maybe on a strip box. When it comes to an octa, no. I would venture to say probably the same thing with a square or rectangle softbox, like a 3x4. Also probably no. You're more than likely going to be in the realm of how the softbox is lit with an octa than you would be with a strip anyway. A strip is pretty exaggerated as far as like width and length. So again, does it matter? In my opinion, not really. If you're a stickler, yes. Can it be mitigated? Totally. So I wouldn't say that you have to have a protruded light for a certain modifier. Unless you're going with something like a 1x6, then maybe you might want to roll with a protruded head, just because there's a lot more distance there. So cool.
All right.
With that being said, I hope you have an awesome rest of your week. If you have any questions, Caitlin threw up my IG handle. I'll have her throw it up here again one more time as I am peacing out. If you have any questions and you want to talk about any of this stuff, or if you just have suggestions, things you'd like to see, things you'd like to have us break down, don't hesitate to DM me. I'd love to talk to you. I try to catch up with everyone. So with that being said, I hope you have an awesome rest of your week, and we will see you next time. Peace out, everybody.